Okay, ma'am. A very good afternoon to one and all. I am Akshayama, the head boy of MLZS. I welcome you all on behalf of Mount Literacy School to today's webinar. As we begin with today's webinar, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our Honorable Chairman, Captain Gopinath Dayalan, sir, our respected correspondent, Mrs. Vijay Shanti Gopinath, ma'am, our dear principal, Mrs. Mabon Helen Hemalata, ma'am, respected Dr. Shamla Dalvi, ma'am, coordinator, ma'am, dear parents and teachers to today's webinar. Today, we're extremely privileged to extend a special welcome to Dr. Shamla Dalvi, ma'am. Dr. Shamla Dalvi, ma'am, is a psychologist and a special educator. She has been working in the field of education for the past 25 years. She has done masters in psychology and in special education, followed by a doctorate in inclusive education. She began as a master trainer at the SNDT University, training pre-service teachers and conducting psychoeducational assessment. She continues to be a guest lecturer at the university and national institutes. She has worked in schools leading the process of including children with disabilities into the mainstream. Her work included training and guiding in service teachers, parents, and students, setting up NIRs for children as an alternative system of examination, conducting assessments, and developing short-term courses for teachers in inclusive education. She is a resource person for inclusive education at the National Council for Educational Research and Training, NCRT and SCRT. She worked as a state consultant for inclusive education with UNICEF and is currently lead Inclusive Education C-Learn Limited. Her passion remains building inclusive school environments and teacher empowerment. Before I hand over this webinar to ma'am, I would like to request all the parents that if you have any queries, please drop it in the chat box. We will bring them up after the webinar. I would now request Dr. Shamla Dalvi ma'am to address the gathering. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Akshay, for such a warm welcome. A very good evening, parents and teachers of the school. Thank you for having me here. This is, I think, my second session. Now, this one for parents who have children between the 3rd and the 8th grade, I think. So around 8 years, 9 years, 8 years to, I think, 12 and 13. So when I was asked to do this session, I was just thinking, because what is it that is, why is it that we need to have this session? Why is it that we are all meeting up like this? And, when you're thinking, I think what we realize is that it's a common platform for all of us to just share our thoughts. Definitely, I'm going to be putting out some thoughts of mine. And I do hope that you will ask me questions, and I do hope that you will share your thoughts about it, because any session is only interesting when it becomes a two-way communication. One way just ends up to be me talking, it's like right now actually just talking to some on this virtual world. You don't even have the physical connect, and that's how I think I asked you all to kind of open up, switch on your videos so that I can at least see people. Otherwise it seems I'm talking into the wall. So unless you people ask me questions, unless you raise some ideas, I think unless you raise your what should I say, experiences, this session will become just a one-sided talk, and that's about it. Since the school has taken so much of an effort to plan such a session, and you people have taken out time to attend this, I do request each one of you to ask any question. There is no right or wrong. It's just your experience. And believe me, your one person's experience is going to benefit all the others. And I can already see more than 70 people here, so which is a large number. So with that, I'm going to start off a presentation. So this is how the session will go. I'll have a small presentation focusing on what is relevant or what is most appropriate for this age group, because with each age group, as you also know, parents, we have different kind of focus areas. Broadly, we are all interested in our children learning, that is for sure. but certain ages emphasize certain things. So between third and eighth, what we call as tweens, I think what are those aspects that we will see in them, and as parents, what is it that we can do for them is what I'm going to have in my presentation, followed by a question answer, and I think we'll give more time for that interaction. Is everybody comfortable in English is the question, or do you want me to also speak in Hindi? Or Tamil, of course, but then that's just as an explanation. I can do that. But is everybody comfortable in English? If you can show me a thumbs up. Okay, I can see thumbs up. I can see. All right. So majority seem to be fine. So in case you feel that, you have not understood something or what I'm saying doesn't seem to make sense, please feel free to ask me either in Hindi or in Tamil. I'm more than happy to help out. And if I don't understand, I'm sure, Akshay or Shruti are going to be helping us understand the question. All right. So here goes. I'm going to share my screen. And we say share. Okay. Okay. I think everybody is able to see my screen, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm going to put it on slide share, which means everybody can see the entire screen. Yeah. So this is my title. Understanding my tween. It's not a child anymore. It's not an adult anymore. They're in between that stage. They're moving from 8 years and more into, and I think today's generation is reaching this adolescence a bit earlier than what we did so many years back. So a lot of things that we are, what do we say, what we thought a 14 and a 15-year-old should be thinking about is now being thought about by an 8 and a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. So yes, times are changing. And I think as parents, we need to acknowledge that and we need to kind of move on. Okay. So there are a lot of thoughts which are happening. And also given the pandemic that has happened for the last 1.5 years, nearly 2 years now, I'm not going to be emphasizing too much about it because I think we have talked enough about it. We know that it has caused a lot of stress to a lot of students, to a lot of people. Why students? I think to a lot of people in general, job losses, stuck up in the house, constantly, having to be only dependent on the laptop for entertainment and things like that. We are all aware of it, and slowly things are opening up. I think even your school has started the classes for 9 to 12. Slowly it will open up for the lower classes also. But there are these thoughts which are usually what I've been hearing from parents, and I'm putting it up for you people also. A lot of parents believe that, one needs to be very, very strict. So strict parenting is the best, is what they feel like. You need to be a completely authoritarian kind of a parent. On the other hand, there are parents who say, no, actually children should just be, you don't need to say anything or do anything with them. They will just grow up. Like we should not tell anything to children, otherwise they'll feel bad, and then what's the point? The house environment is going to be bad, so let's not say anything to children. However they behave, it is okay. Some parents believe that their role in studies is not needed because once they have admitted them in a good school, I think their role gets over, and that's all that their job is, that is to make sure that a child gets entry into a good school. Some parents, and they have been telling me that, what, you say that use of smartphone and everything is not good, but actually speaking, the use of smartphone or gadgets really improves the children's skills. Now, that's some people who think. Of course, there are parents who feel that unless we are constantly around our children and we are constantly involved in education of our children will not do well. Some believe that online teaching is good. Children don't have to get up early, so it's a good thing. I mean, good thing in terms of because their child doesn't have to get up early. Otherwise, they have to get up early, get ready. The whole house is in one chaos when the child has to get ready and go. So they feel that, having this online is a better way, koi problem hi nahi aayegi. They just have to sit at home and attend. Uh, a belief, and which is very strongly held by many, is that fathers need to intervene in the education only when the children reach the 9th and 10th, because the mothers cannot handle education above 5th standard. They feel that only in kindergarten and those kind of things that mothers can do. But as they grow up, it's the father's intervention that is needed. And of course, there are some who say that children cannot manage anything on their own. So as a parent, I need to be all the time giving them directions. Now, these are all thoughts. There is no right, there is no wrong. Everything is dependent. These thoughts are dependent on how, I guess, our parenting has been. I say this to all. It's like none of us have been given any actual training when we had our children as to how to bring them up. We saw our children, we saw our parents, and then we either did how they did it or we did what they didn't do. Because if we thought that that was not right, if we found that our parents are very, very strict, we thought that being very, very lenient is what is very good. Or we think that, oh, that is the best way to bring up, so we have. It's only now, over so many last few years, that we have started talking and we have started having these kind of sessions where we feel that actually bringing up children is not a joke. It's not so easy. And there are a lot of influences that shape up a child's growth and development. So having said that, this session is about that. Let's understand. For our child to be successful or to make any kind of progress, what they say, and this has been proven, is that a parent has to be involved. Now we need to understand what kind of involvement are we expecting from the parent. Are we expecting a parent to be 24/7 sitting next to the child and feeding him and dressing him and telling him how to behave constantly? Or are we going to be supportive and a facilitator to help our child to go ahead, make the mistakes that he has to, but be there to support him and correct him when he needs it? So involvement in a child's life, in the child's learning, is essential, and it is essential at all stages in life. It's only we just need to know to what level. We don't need to be a helicopter parenting. A helicopter parent is one who's constantly hovering around on the child's head 24/7, breathing down their neck, telling them when to eat, how much to eat, where to go, which class to attend, and probably paving all the ways for them so that they have no problems in their life. But life is not like that. Some aspects, as I said, for children between 8 to 13, what is it that you start noticing about your children as they are entering into this stage? What is it that is different from when they were little ones in their first standard or senior KG or second standard? Slowly, you start realizing that their language skills have become more abstract and complex. They're able to hold an argument. They're able to explain to you something very well. Their use of vocabulary, their use of choice of words, their explanation, their understanding, their reasoning becomes much, much better and much more complex. Their thinking and reasoning skills improve, which means there will be a lot more questions about why should I do this and why not this way, where somebody else is doing it that way. Why are we expecting? How are we behaving like this in our school, in our home? So there is a lot, and that happens because there is a lot of, as I said, thinking and reasoning skills. As the child grows, the brain development is happening more. The experiences are more. Their ability to to understand increases. Their ability to focus and concentrate on tasks for longer periods of time is seen. You can see that a child is able to sit through a long class, is able to sit through any project that he takes up or she takes up, and is able to sit and complete it in a much better way than what she or he was doing. So that begins from like from like 8 years old, and by the time the child is in the 8th standard, or by the time the child is reaching 7th and 8th, the child is more or less able to sit for long hours completing the work. They're able to understand a variety of concepts, and their memory improves significantly. You're able to know that they're not only does their memory improve, but they're able to relate what they have learned earlier to a new situation, which means application and generalization happens very easily now. More abstract matters are understood. They seek more information. They're curious. They want to understand more. Their reading ability improves. They're able to assimilate different kinds of information. They're able to do all that in a much, much better manner than what they were able to do. They're able to take responsibility and act purposefully. This is a very important point. Parents, please remember, they can take up responsibility. For us, they still seem babies, because for us, I think even when they become 50 years old, they'll be a baby because they are our children. But honestly, at this stage, they are ready to take up the responsibility. They can act usefully, purposefully, provided we give them that opportunity. Socially and emotionally, they are becoming mature. They're able to handle their emotions better. They're able to interact socially in a better manner. They know who's a friend. They know who's not a friend. They know whom they want to play. They know whom they will not want to play. They know, but this is also an age. Along with this comes in, I mean, whereas parents, we need to look at is peer pressure, because peer pressure will start coming in at this age, where they may want to behave like their peers. Bullying may come in. So this is an age where they need to be, where they will experience this and they will handle it, and they will need support in these things. This is also an age where they need to be recognized. Please understand, recognized as capable, independent, and that they have an opinion. So we cannot tell them, do this because I am saying so. Not anymore. They want to be independent. They feel that they can be independent. They feel that they are capable. So we need to give them those opportunities to do that. And finally, I think, which is again a very important aspect, especially as the child reaches 10 and 11, is adjusting to the physical growth and development. A lot of changes happens because they're growing, and there will be a growth spurt as they enter adolescence. There will be a lot of bodily changes. There will be a lot of changes in the way they look, the way they sound, the way their body changes. And to be able to handle that, to be able to deal with that, is going to be a constant stress in their lives. And we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge, for some children, it happens earlier. For some girls who start off having their menstruation as early as 4th standard, as early as that. Whereas, many years back, it used to be only when the girls turn 13 and 14, but not anymore. So we need to be aware, we need to be there. So these are aspects, I think, that we need to be aware of as parents. And given that the pandemic has been around, I think mental health is another aspect that we need to be focusing on. So if we are able to do if we are able to focus on, keep in mind that these are the aspects of a child who is between these ages, then intervening will be easier. So our roles as parents now, which means if you see all the aspects that I have put down here, it covers these points. That means social emotional nurturing they will need, as they are growing up, as they are facing. There will be some children who have many friends. There will be some children who have no friends. There will be some children who are emotionally not very strong. There are some children who are not. So they will need that support. They will need that nurturing. They will need that sensitivity. They will definitely need your help in academics. I'm not saying that you have to do their homework, but definitely you need to be around to help them learn. Third, building character. I think that is one big aspect that comes in now, because how does this happen? Because now they're able to think, reason, analyze. So the way we behave, our role again becomes very essential now, because children learn from observing. So the character gets built not just overnight, it gets built from what all is seen around them. So let's make sure that that happens. Responsibility is a huge thing that needs to be given to them at this stage. Okay, so we as parents have to create situations where responsibility can be given, and finally allow them to be independent, because this is our role. We need to know that these are required. It's not only pressure of study that needs to be given as the children grow up and move towards the 8th and the 9th and the 10th. No, they are growing holistically. So they will need support holistically. It's not only one-sided, that is academics. Most often around here, we are only focusing on academics, how well the child is doing, what subjects he can do, how much will he score, what career choices he has to make. All these things are the focus of for every parent, not so much as how socially is he adapted, or how well is his character, or is he able to deal with a stress situation. All these things we are not talking about, not so openly, not as much as we do for academics. So I think we need to remember these points. So what is it that we need to be, what are those points that we can work with as parents? So as we said, character, conscience, and values. Okay. These are some things that need to be, how do you think these get learned? Just by telling them, okay, you have to behave properly, or you must have positive values, or you must be honest, or you must be this? No, obviously not. Obviously not. All this happens when the child in the family notices all around himself the kind of things that are happening. So if a parent believes in honesty, trust me, the child will also be following suit. If the child sees that, yahan pe to it is okay, sometimes my parents don't do what they are saying, sometimes they're used to lies, sometimes they are not telling the truth, we are sending out mixed signals to our child. So if I'm looking at character development, or if I'm looking at conscience, or if I'm looking at values, I think our role or our behavior, the way we interact becomes an essential learning part. Fostering self-esteem, from what we have said, they like to be responsible, they like to take on challenges, or they are ready to face any kind of situation. It is our duty as parents to create conditions where children feel appreciated. How does self-esteem happen? How does child starts feeling good and feeling, saying that, you know what, I'm confident? How does that happen? I think it happens when we allow children to do things independently, when we praise and encourage not only the result but the effort. We need to appreciate effort. We need to give them things to be done on their own and appreciate what they have done, and be there to say that, yes, you can do it, you have been able to do it, and that's what is going to help them develop into a more confident young adult. Encouraging emotional growth. So if I'm talking about self-esteem, saying that we need to be positive, we need to be appreciative, we need to be understanding, then emotional growth is another important aspect. How do I express myself? How to express my emotion? Getting angry is not a problem, everybody does. How do I show that anger. Can I just go up and beat up somebody, or throw up somebody, or throw things around, or can I just tear up something because I am angry? No, obviously not. So teaching them appropriate ways, that will happen if we have a conversation with them, or when we also see parents. Many times what happens is, when the parent is upset, he or she screams, or when the parent is angry, they raise their hand. So what we are teaching is that this is okay, this is how we need to behave. So they are going to be learning from what and how we deal with our emotions. So teach them appropriate expressions, be there for them when they're upset and angry. At that time, don't try and preach, just be there. When they're upset, all that they need is a hug and say, sweetie, I'm there for you. Okay. Involvement in learning, I think, as I said, spend time with your children regularly. Make sure that you have a connect with the school, find out what is happening, find out from your child which areas are difficult for the child. Just because your other child is able to do it, or just because your friend's child is able to do it, doesn't mean that your child will be able to do it in the same manner. This is the time when we have to give them enough opportunities to decide what they can choose later on as they grow up. Don't force them that no, only you have to be an engineer, only you have to be this, only you have to be that. No, that's not your role. Your role is to be involved and slowly understand what the strengths and what the need areas are of your child. Do that, please. Uh, Dealing with crisis and trauma. As the children are growing older, they need to be independent in that. They need to know how to handle if they are faced with a situation. And they will be able to do that when, one, we don't protect them completely. You know, most often we think that not sharing any information with children, not telling them about what problems have happened, or not sharing with them a sad news, we think we are protecting them. But we are, please understand, we are not protecting them. We are not getting them ready for the reality. This is reality. If somebody has lost a life, if you have lost somebody, if there has been an accident, if there has been any crisis, we need to very matter of fact talk to our children. Another thing, how we react to a crisis. Are we becoming hysterical? Are we losing it? Are we handling it? Or are we just screaming? Or we are becoming all over, I mean, so confused that we don't know how to do? Will influence how the child reacts to the situation. If the child sees, even in this pandemic, I think it depends on how we have dealt with it. If we are highly paranoid, constantly anxious, constantly stressed, that is exactly what we are going to pass on to the child. Then telling the child calm down is not going to help. Your body language has to say it too. How do we prevent? Again, a lot of issues come in with behaviors now at this stage, because they're growing up, they want to experiment with a lot of things, they want to see how, who will react how when they do something. So understand what is it, how is your child reacting to what situation, what makes him comfortable, what shows does he like to see, what are those things that he doesn't like to see. Have a check, and then be a role model for teaching responsible behavior. If you say it's okay to throw the wrapper of the chocolate outside of the car window, and then you say, no, no, we should not throw, we must only discard in the dustbin, you are contraindicating the what you're saying. So your behavior has to follow your talk, right? So that is very, very important. So remember that. And finally, I think the most important is, all this can be done, or all this is happening when you have regular communication with your children. When I say communication, it doesn't mean only asking questions about what happened in school. Did you complete your homework? Did you finish this? Did you finish this assignment? What happened to that tuition class? No, conversations have to be beyond that. Can we cook together? Should we play a game of carom together? Did you know what happened in my office today? Oh my God, this vegetable vendor today did this. Oh my God, this general conversation. Please make time for doing all that. I think given that our kids, we are talking about children specifically in this range, I think we need to focus on all these things much more than just academics. I think this is what I wanted to share. And now I think I'm open to questions from you all. So I'm going to stop presenting so that I can see everybody and you can ask me questions.
Thank you so
I
much,
think there
ma'am.
are, yes, I haven't yet received any question, but they can unmute and ask me or they can type out whatever.
Okay, ma'am. So I have like 4 or 5 questions, ma'am. Can I?
Yeah, sure. Yes,
So the
please.
first question, ma'am, how to deal with a child who is not so frank with the parent, that is only with the mother.
Okay. So when you say not with, how old is the child, number one?
Grade 7.
Grade 7. Okay. As I said, grade 7 by now, that means they've entered the adolescent age or pre-teens or teens. So there are going to be a lot of aspects that they may not want to share with the parent. And especially if the parent starts asking, whom were you talking to? Where were you doing? What were you doing? If she starts asking too many questions, trust me that the child is not going to be sharing. So if I want my child to share, I need to share first. That's how I think we start telling the parents right from the early grades that spend time chatting with your child, because what time you spend earlier, that becomes a habit by the time the child comes in the 6th and 7th. So one is be open about yourself and what you think. Don't pry. Let them not be like a interrogation session. The moment it's an interrogation, why? Why did you do this? Why? Who's that one? Why did you speak so long? Children become defensive. So one is try and understand what are those things that the child is not frank about. Is it that the child doesn't say anything? Is it that the child is hiding everything? Or is it that the child is only not sharing some things? Now let's understand what are those some things. Are these the points which the child knows is going to upset you? Or the child feels that, you know, if I tell this to mama, mama is going to really shout at me. So if that is the case, then somewhere through our talks, through our interactions, we need to tell them that sharing is much more important. If everything is shared, there is not going to be any shouting. When you don't share is when the problems happen. So most often we tell children, many times we say, okay, I will not shout at you if you tell me the truth. And the moment the child tells the truth, we pounce on him. We forgot it. So then what are we saying? So the child thinks she's saying something and then she'll anyway end up shouting at me. So forget it. Let me not tell only. So let's not do that. Let's understand. So if the parent can just go over the behaviors as to when is it that the child has been not sharing, I think it will help us to zero in on how to do it.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, a child's mind is not stable, only playing and playing in his mind. How we can teach that he has to take responsibility? Yes.
Okay. Again, what grade?
5th, ma'am.
5th grade. Okay. See, children will play, no? Children only have to play. You and me, I wish we could play, but we feel that we're too old to play. I'm happy if children play. Now, how do I instill responsibility? Is by allowing to take the responsibility, right? So we have to give them chores that need to be done. which can begin very in small manner. So if the child is already in the 5th, which means the child is 10 years old, okay, old enough to probably make a sandwich on her own or on his own, right? Old enough to make a lemon juice for himself and for a grandmother, or for you when you come back or when you are tired. Old enough probably to lay the table and to clear the table. So just as we in school have timetable to ensure that all aspects are covered, at home too we need to have a kind of a routine. I'm not saying it has to be so rigid that it starts feeling like you are in the armed forces, no, but discipline is important. So if the child knows that the play time is only between 5 to 7, 3 to 5 the child has to finish homework, or 3 to 4 the child has to finish homework, and 4 to 5 the child has to help in the household chores. When such a routine is set up, then the child knows where to draw the limit. When we have no routine and we expect child to understand what is going on in your mind, then it's not the child's fault. They are not mind readers, right? They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you're expecting. So why not tell them what you're expecting? Why not put it down as a schedule? It's so much easier even now when we still are on this online classes. Let them finish their class by 1. Tell them between 1 to 2 is their lunchtime, 2 to 3 is their homework or their playtime. 3 to 4 or 4:30 is something that we are going to be doing together, whether it is helping mama in the kitchen or whether it is helping daddy or whether it is helping grandma, whatever. We need to get them to do this. Watering plants, taking care of the pet, going down to the grocery store to pick up some things. These are the ways in which you will start off responsibility. That is one. Second, we used to have this also to teach them about the importance of money and teach them about how to handle money. Give them a small pocket money. Ask them to maintain a diary, expenses. Tell them what they can buy. Ask them to collect. Let them do these things. We don't allow them to do all these things and then we expect them to be suddenly responsible. It won't happen. Be more responsible, we tell the children. Means what? What does this translate into in terms of action? Being responsible means keeping away all your things in place. Being responsible means when I call for dinner, everybody should come in. You should come in before and lay down the table. Being responsible means changing into your clothes without me having to prompt you. Whatever you want. Please be explicit in telling them what you want from them. Don't let them imagine. Okay. So once we are clear, and another thing, the whole house, everybody should speak the same language. So if the mother is insisting on this, and if the father or the grandmother or the grandfather says, Jane dona, let it be, still a kid, then the child is smart enough to know which side he needs to go. And the child is never going to be able to follow what you want. Responsibility won't come. Because he knows, acha, so it's only mama na, so chalo, let me go and cry in front of granny. Let me go and trouble daddy when he has just come back from work. Children are smart. Don't let them get over you. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. My daughter is always eating junk food. Now she is 42 kg. So when I say that ask her to do exercise in the morning, she's seeing me as an enemy. How do I handle it?
Which class is she in?
Grade 4, ma'am.
6th. Grade 4, it's a baby. Okay. So only wants to eat junk food when she's only 10 years old. Who's buying the junk food? 1. That means we only are allowing it. No, that's the first. how much of portion to be given, how much to be given is something that we need to monitor. Just because we monitor doesn't we become monsters. Children don't understand. When they like something, they want to go on eating. Okay, that is one. Telling a child that you have to exercise will never get them to exercise. You need to exercise with them. You need to exercise, you need to get up, you need to go take her cycling, you need to go running with her, you need to go jogging, you or your husband, whoever. We need to enroll them into a dance class if she's interested, or an aerobics class if she's interested. Some kind of fun, some kind of jumping, Zumba for all, join it along with her. She's still young. Just telling her is not going to help at all. Let's make food interesting. What you cook at home becomes interesting. Why don't you start making things like we say pizza? Yeah, pizza sounds bad, but then pizza on a on a wheat base, pizza or a pasta with a wheat pasta, and having milk and having one slice of cheese is not unhealthy. So let's monitor. Children like variety. Have days on which they are allowed to eat, and that's the kind of rule that you have to have. The child will throw a tantrum and say, I want to eat only junk food. Because the child is crying and you give it, the child knows that, okay, so I just need to cry a little more or a louder, then I will get it. So she only eats junk food because kids, it seems, I remember speaking to a pediatrician, and I asked them, why is it that the children seem to be during this age seem to be so attracted to cheese? They only want to eat pizzas and pastas. He said, yes, because the body craves that cheese and something in that during this age. So that's how it is a high craving. But just because that is there doesn't mean that we allow them to go ahead and continue only that. No, it's again up to us. So let's have a routine, make a routine. Yeah. Make something interesting along with your child. Involve the child in cooking. Say, okay, let's make a sandwich. You like a sandwich? Or let's make a, like junk food is what? Actually, what is the definition of junk food when parents tell me that? Is it only pizza and pasta that they're looking at? Or is it things from outside that they're looking at? Or is it chips that they're looking at? What is it? Let's also understand when we are saying junk food, are we just making a whole blanket rule for everything that is bought from outside? Yeah. So if there are some things that your child likes, for example, she likes to eat a snack, then how about making things at home? Homemade things become easier, become better. Yeah. So try that. And of course, for exercise, as I said, unless we do it with the child initially at least, or she has a group, or you have a plan with her friends where they all meet up at a particular time and they are following through a routine of exercise or play or something. Do that. And I think now we are allowed to go down. So if you have a couple of friends in your neighborhood, make sure that you go out in the morning or in the evening. It's very important. For the past 1.5 years, I think all of us have become so used to sitting at home. Even today, now when we have an opportunity of going out, we don't want to go out because we are so comfortable sitting at home and ordering everything on Amazon. It becomes easier. So instead of that, I think we have to restart our lives and restart this whole thing about going out, moving out. The moment the child starts moving out, doing skipping, running, jogging, I think things will be fine.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Parent of grade 5. Child gets angry even for some funny talks and any easygoing conversation. It makes her anger at the last. How to deal with such case?
No, that is something that I'm not, I mean, by any talk, if the child is getting angry, there is some reason, something is there. I cannot just just tell just like that, because anger is a reaction. So that means there has to be some kind of a trigger. Now, the trigger you may think is not there, but maybe in the tone of your speaking, maybe the things that you have said, maybe the things that you may have said related to this sometime back, which is still stuck in her head. Maybe the other people's reaction when this is said to her. These are aspects which will get her angry. Just because somebody is talking, or any funny things or anything. So when you are saying funny, is it that somebody has made fun of her, or does maybe she's thinking that she has been made fun of? So I would like more clarity from this parent if she is able to unmute and talk with me.
Ma'am, I think parents, with parents, children are also there. So they will question
Okay,
why
fine.
you have
All
written.
right. Okay, got it. That's why I didn't want children to be around. Anyway, so I hope, so if there is any further thing that they need to ask me, Shruti, you know that you can get in touch with me.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Can I move on to the next question, ma'am?
Yes.
How to ask child not to hide things from parents, like while during online classes she might be distracted by doing drawing, paper cutting from the back. When suddenly parent enters, she get and
They change.
yes, and she's starting to listen to the class, it seems, and the child is from grade 4.
Actually, the only thing is that you need to be around. Or see, I think these online classes have caused chaos in everybody's life. So I think that is when I tell the teachers to keep their cameras on. I think that's the only way that we can expect children to be paying full attention to us. The moment we put our cameras on off, children get distracted because you're just listening to some, I mean, they know that, teachers can't see them. So that full focus of 40 minutes may not be there. So they may be paying attention. Sometime they start doing something else and then their attention just goes there. So one is, let's have our teachers ensure that they ask the students to keep their cameras on. Second is, when does this child do this? Is it in a particular class or is it always? Because if it is in a particular class, then maybe either she's not understanding what the teacher is saying or she's finding it difficult. And that's how she is finding, another easy option or an interesting option. That's one. Another thing could be that the parents are not giving her enough time to do these other things, this drawing and, what she wants to do. So maybe we need to check on that too. That is it that she has enough time as recreation to do what she likes to do, that is painting or coloring or drawing. So ask the parent, please check on these things. So one, whether she finds the subject difficult. Second, whether she's allowed to do these things. And third, I think a very important point that we must remember is these children who have come into fourth have missed out 2 years of school. So they have no idea that they are supposed to be sitting quietly and listening. When they were in school, there was not so much of academics in second grade. Correct? First grade. First, nearly to the end, I think second and third, second and a half, I think 2.5, they must have attended. There was just very less content. Now in the grade 4, the content is so much. So probably the interest or their attention span reduces because it's just looking at the screen. So ask the parent to find out what all are the things. Talk to the teacher of that classroom and then find out whether we can have some kind of, as I always say, some kind of a motivation chart which says, okay, let me see how many of you are attending. I'm going to do a random check. I'm going to ask you all to just play a game and keep your cameras on at any point, and whosoever is not there and not paying attention will get a will not get a star that day, or things like that. If we can do that with the teachers can do that, and the parents can do this, I think it will be fine. And let the child sit in a separate place, but yet in a place where you can monitor at home. Don't keep the child separately in another room, which is completely quiet and secluded, because maybe that also allows them to just do what they want to do. So bring them into a system, give them a headphone so they don't get disturbed. Bring them in a system where they know that they are watched, or people are walking around and they can be seen. Hope that helps.
Thank you, ma'am. If a parent hasn't included few or most of the ways a child has to be parented, as you said, can the change happen now if we follow it now? The age of the child is 8 years. I mean, slowly, if these qualities are of apt parenting are not followed before, but now if we start, can that
Absolutely.
change in the child?
Absolutely. Yes, of course it will. They say that a habit gets formed in 21 days. Anything new, that's the management funda, that in 21 days you can get something to be changed, or that thing to be learned. So if that is so, then let's just try it. Consistency. I think what happens is all of us very enthusiastically start, but due to whatever circumstance or that situation or our own inability or our stress level, at some point we give up. So if a parent is consistent, and if everybody is able to follow through this, if we are able to have conversations with our child on a regular basis about everything, reading to the child every day, trust me, 8 is still not a very old age. You still have a lot of time to make up for all that you didn't do.
Thank you, ma'am. My son is studying 6th grade. He feels stressed sometimes and easily get depressed. After boosting only, he will become normal. Is that okay?
I feel that all this is now more so because of this virtual world that the children are. Their interactions with their peers, the fun that they would have in school, talking to everybody, moving around, doing different activities, all those things are being missed by kids. And once again, a 6th standard kid means the 4th standard he must have been. 6th standard academics have become very high, more subjects, more in depth, more expectations. So suddenly maybe the child feels a little down. It's all right to feel down. But I would also like to ask here, or suggest to parents, that it's very important to have children do physical exercise. Just sitting in one place in front of the laptop or in front of the mobile or in front of the TV, and only moving around in the house definitely is detrimental to the cognitive development. So all children, for that matter, and especially as they're growing up, need the physical exercise 120%. They need to have that 1 hour. They say 60 minutes of physical exercise is required for every child to not only develop physically, but also cognitively. So if we are able to do that, if we are able to convince parents to allow children or ensure that children do physical exercises, that will help the child's motivation, that will help the child feel good about himself. So I'm sure children are not doing this. They have no interactions. That is one. Second, having a hobby. That's very important. So only studies because there is so much of study, because there is so much of homework, is getting them no time for themselves. So exercise and hobby, I think if they are able to do, automatically they'll start feeling better. So do that, and I think it will be fine.
Thank you, ma'am. How to keep children away from electronic devices except online classes?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Okay, so how to keep children away from electronic devices except online classes?
How to is the biggest question, no, for everyone, whether the child is in first grade or in seventh grade. I think I would like some parents to unmute and tell me how to do that. Let me hear what they have to say. They're asking me, let me ask them. What are they doing? How are they doing it? Does anybody want to unmute and answer me? I'll be happy if somebody unmutes.
They're
Ma'am,
allowed to unmute,
actually,
ma'am.
we stopped watching at home, ma'am, except weekends. So, except weekends, we stopped watching the TVs or gadgets or using mobile phone in front of the kids. So, we can be a role model to them. So, we stopped it. We are following it for the past 1 year. Except
Okay.
weekends, kids will not watch any TV or they will not use gadgets.
So then what do you do? If they are not watching, then how do you spend your time?
We'll do some crafts. We'll go outdoor and play some time. We'll go to the terrace. We'll walk. We'll sing along.
Correct.
Well, I'll make them do the chapati. I'll make them to sweep, mop.
Okay.
Whatever I do, I'll make them to do.
Okay, and it has helped.
Yeah, little bit, ma'am.
Absolutely. So yes. So one is be a role
Sometimes
model.
we feel stressed. We couldn't able to do
Yeah.
that, but as a practice, it is possible. So we made it. We overcome it, and now we are free from the gadgets. Even the kids understand. This weekend, if the grandparents comes to home, they will say, "This is weekday. We should not use it. Please switch off the TV."
Okay. Okay, that's worked well. Actually,
Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
I think one is being a role model, or also having designated time. Like, I think I have been saying this even in my last thing. How many of us are able to sit without our mobiles and without constantly looking at some Insta post that has come up? Right? I'm sure that all of us find it difficult. And I had to put this challenge to all the parents that let's give up. Let's have tech-free zones or tech-free time in our homes. Let's begin with that. Let's all give away or keep away all our gadgets between the times 5 o'clock in the evening to 8 o'clock or 8:30 till dinner time is over. Let's begin with that at least. Only then will we be able to show them that how interesting it can be even without the gadget. How many of us play with our children all those games that we used to play, whether it is snakes and ladder, whether it is Ludo, whether it is carom, whether it is cards. There are so many games that we used to play. I wonder how many of us play with our children that. How many of us read together storybooks? And nowadays, everybody, anything we say, okay, we'll see it on the phone. No, I'm talking about hard books, the books, the physical books, turning paper, talking about it, discussing what story there was, talking about how it was when they had, what kind of magazines we had. I don't think children know about Chanda Mama and Champak that we used to have long time back. I wonder whether children read something like that. Doing puzzles, doing craft, doing, playing games, like, as I said, business also. Why not? Why don't we start off all these things? We as parents also need to de-stress. So the first important thing is, one, be a role model, as the parent was telling, and completely cut off. The second option is keep certain times in your home and all of us can detox. It's not only children. You can't say, okay, you don't sit with the mobile and then you are sitting yourself, or you don't watch TV and you are sitting and watching TV. That's not fair. So you have times when you can do that. Third, you can put down, as I said, a timetable and said only between 5 to 6 can you watch this. We cannot say that no watching. I wish we could do that. When we say no watching, you must have other activities which are equally important or equally interesting. Involve them in cooking. As they grow older, please get them a hobby. You need to have a hobby, whether it is reading storybooks, whether it is taking care of gardening, whether it is taking care of that, or whether it is exercising or learning dance or dancing or singing, something. Only when they have that will they be able to look beyond the mobile or beyond the gadget. If they don't have any of this, in 2 minutes after they keep up with the phone, they'll come back and say, what should I do now? I'm bored. So have a routine, do away with the whole thing like a whole family and you boycott the entire thing, or at least begin with saying, 3 to 4 hours we will not see in our house. Do that. Begin with that and then see where it leads. It's only when you have the time will you realize now what all you can do. Abhi to we don't have that option only. Each one sits with their own gadget. Koi iPad hai, somebody TV, somebody mobile, somebody something. Correct, na? So let's do this and then let me see if it has worked or not worked.
Sure, ma'am. So, why do children tend to rebel when they are corrected,
Hmm.
and how to deal with the child?
Yeah, so this is what I was telling. If you go back to the characteristics of children who are between 8 to 13, they're trying to become grown up. They're trying to show that they can manage. They're trying to show that they can handle. So the moment they are told to do something, they don't want to do it. The best way to handle such things is to give them an option. It's like, okay, so you know what, we have to do this or we have to do this. Tell me, how do you want to do it? Give them option. Give them, don't spring on them. If you want them to clean up their room, then you have to tell them, okay, fine, you have an option. You can't say, okay, go now and clean it up. Just now I want it cleaned up. It has to be an option saying, okay, I want it cleaned up by today, end of the day. Or, okay, can you at least clean up the cupboard? The rest of it I will do. Or let's do it together. Things like that. The moment when it comes in as an order, the first thing that the child is going to say is, no, I won't do it. Because I know what I have to do. I'm old enough. So, and then it becomes an ego battle for the parent. It's like, I am telling you, I'm the mother. My daughter is laughing sitting here. She's 20, she's 25. So she says that, Acha, this is how I have brought her up. So this is important. This is very important that we give them the option. It is very important that we tell them why we are doing so. It's very important to ask them what they want to do. It's very important to know what they think. Give them the options and let them choose. So as a parent, of course, I think the kind of options that you give is still in your control. So start off with that. The child will realize that, okay, mommy's allowing me to do this on my own. And if you've allowed them to do something, then let them just own up that responsibility. It's okay. Don't say, I told you so. No, I knew you'll make a mistake in this. It's no fun then. Give them an option, give them the responsibility, say, go ahead, try it out. It's okay. Let's see what happens. Yeah. So instead of getting, the moment he says yes, you say no and yes, and then it becomes a fight, and then both of them are upset, the parent and the child, and the issue is not resolved. Correct? So give options, talk with your children, tell them that, okay, now that you're growing up, these are important parts that I want. Have some rules. You say, okay, these are non-negotiables. Everybody has to sit at the dining table and eat. It's a non-negotiable. But you can have a snack maybe in your room. But dinner time, everybody has to be together. You need to sit at the table and study. That's a non-negotiable. But you can read a storybook sitting on a sofa. Get them 3 or 4 things that are absolutely very important and what you believe in as a family. That's what will form the character, the conscience, the values. Right? The other things, don't fret the small things. Don't insist on every small thing to be changed. That won't happen. And that shouldn't happen. Then where is their identity? Correct? So tell them about these 4 or 5 things and say, these are the things that are very important and these cannot be changed. The rest, let's talk about how you can do it. Talk with your children, parents. That helps a lot. Talk, mane, have a conversation. No getting angry and agitated and then shouting at them at the end of the day. No, that won't work. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So we are done with the questions, ma'am, in the chat box.
Oh, okay. Great. So is there anybody else who wants to still think of some question? I'll be happy to do that. Otherwise, I think we are done. Is there anybody who wants to unmute and ask
I don't
me
know
anything?
this, ma'am.
Sorry?
The
I
child
didn't
is
hear
saying
that.
he doesn't have any questions, ma'am. So I can.
Okay. Okay, fine. Okay. Then that's it then. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time and information. It was indeed a pleasure being with you today. As we have reached the end of today's webinar, I would like to thank Dr. Shyamala Dalvi, ma'am, who gave a vital time for conducting this webinar, our chairman, sir, correspondent, ma'am, and our principal, ma'am, for enabling us to make all this happen. Thank you, dear parents, for your patience throughout this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Bye. Thank you, parents. All the best. Take care.